My first experience meeting a professional wrestler was in 1987 when my family traveled across country to visit some other family. Upon entering the terminal at the Charlotte Douglas Airport, my grandfather, who had brought us to the airport, told my dad to keep a close eye on us because there were a lot of wild people in the airport that day. My dad told him not to worry because the wild people that he was talking about were actually a bunch of wrestlers traveling through Charlotte at the time. One of those wrestlers was Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant. When we boarded our flight, my mom and dad were on one side of the aisle with my infant brother, and I was just across the aisle on my own as a 6-year-old waiting to see who I would be flying to Louisville beside of. Then Barry Whindham came down the aisle in the biggest cowboy boots I'd ever seen at that point and sat with me. I can still remember how uncomfortable all 6'5" of Barry Whindham looked crammed into that seat. After introducing himself to my parents, who already knew him, he took off his cowboy boots, crammed them in the overhead compartment, and we played paper football on the seat back trays all the way to Louisville.
Is that a thing? You take off your cowboy boots and put them in the overhead compartment and just walk around in socks? I guess if you're 6'5" and you have giant cowboy boots that you use to fly every single week, that makes sense. I love a bunch of wild men in the airport. Look out, there's a rowdy group today. Can we assume he's talking about the Samoan SWAT team? And the Boogie Woogie Man? That kind of makes sense. I guess if you didn't know what wrestlers were in 1987 and you saw these group of Crockett wrestlers just roaming around a tiny airport, I'd probably be scared for myself too. But the dream as a kid was to fly on an airplane and sit next to one of those wrestlers. Just a dream. Never even came close for me. But for this guy, Barry Whindham sat right next to him and played paper football. Also, that's kind of all I thought about was what these guys must have done on a flight. I mean, obviously, most of them in that era just got drunk and passed out. But it was like books. You had to read books or just play paper football with the little kid neighbor next to you. I guess that's what I would have been doing if I was wrestling in 1987. Paper football. Oh, how the times have changed. Hey, thanks for watching. That call was part of a whole podcast called Wrestling Anonymous. Listen to the whole thing weekly. Wherever you listen to your podcast, go subscribe. While you're at it, subscribe right here on YouTube to Colt Cabana's channel. Thank you.